Your Town Matters is funded by the Government of Canada through the Local Journalism Initiative and supported by Cactus Media, Canada's independent community television association.
I'm Vicki Hogarth, and welcome to Your Town Matters. I'm joined today by the Mayor of Eastern Charlotte, John Craig. Thanks for being here today, John.
Thank you for having me. It's nice to be here.
So now that amalgamation, local governance reform is in full effect, and you are now the Mayor of Eastern Charlotte.
That's correct.
Tax rates have been set. Can we talk about how things are changing for people in all the former LSDs?
Yeah, we just got the information released this week to be able to let people know exactly what's going on because their tax bills are coming out. It's not as bad as we thought it was going to be. Right now, I mean, the first initial budget was not done by us, our municipality. It was done by the province of New Brunswick. The province of New Brunswick has done all this, and they had no say in the budget process at all. So it was just handed to us. So the information that was handed to us this week was that in the old, what they call the town of St. George, their tax rate went down 2 cents. The village of Blacks Harbour, the village, is down 7 cents. The LSD of Penfield, they're the only one that increased to the max, which the max was 5 cents, and that the province of New Brunswick capped everything at 5 cents. So the LSD of Penfield went up 5 cents. The LSD of the Funded Bay area went up 1 cent. The LSD of the St. George Parish, that'd be like the Bethel area and the further out, Didiguash area, down 2 cents. The Bonnie River, Second Falls area, where Terry Lee, he's the councillor, and up that way, that dropped down 3 cents. The area of the Beaver Harbor area, it went up just 1 cent, and the LSD of the St. Patrick area went up 1 cent as well too. So really, it wasn't that bad overall. So the only compounding issue would be your assessments. Mm-hmm. Of course, if your assessment went up from, I'm saying, a new house went up beside you, or a house sold for twice the value of what it should have, the assessment would go up and your tax rate went up. It will affect you a fair amount. But overall, it wasn't as bad as we thought. We thought there was a cap at 5 cents, and there's only one area that went up the full 5 cents. It wasn't as bad as we thought it was going to be.
So Penfield, 5 cents, and that, I guess the tax rates are based on the idea, and I know we're still navigating local government reform of shared services and who likely might be taking part in more. So I imagine that means they assume Penfield is.
It's hard to explain it, but it is simple. But is that there's certain things that are shared costs, and the reason that Blacks Harbour dropped so much was because on their backs is the arena and the YMCA down there. So their biggest, for the taxpayers of Little Blacks Harbour, was paying for the full cost of running the arena. Now that's a shared cost for everybody, because that's a building that everybody will use, so it's a shared cost. Macadamic Place in St. George would be another shared cost. The fire service will be a shared cost as well to everybody. Capital projects will not be shared costs, so if we do a sidewalk or a road in St. George or Blacks Harbour, those areas would just be affecting those tax rates. So there's certain things that are shared and some things aren't. So one of the biggest shared costs is the cost of a council, a mayor, and of course all the people that work for in the offices, the municipal staff. That's a shared cost for everybody too. So there's certain things the outside areas never had to pay for before, such as mayor and council, and in the arena and those sort of things. That's where the tax rate might have gone up a bit because now they're paying for something they didn't have to pay for before. Whereas Blacks Harbour had to pay for it before, so now it's being shared. They get the luxury of having a tax drop.
So if you are in Blacks Harbour, then quite a significant break, and St. George, relative.
Yep, absolutely. No, exactly. And I want to be very clear, and the council wants me to make it very clear as well. And I try to do it everywhere I'm out in the public, is to make sure that this is nothing that we set up, nothing that our council did, nothing that we did. All we did was put our names forward to be on the council, but everything that so far has been done by the province of New Brunswick. So the first year or so, everything's being set up. This wasn't our idea to do this, but we're trying to make the best thing out of it, and we're representing the area now to try to do what we can to make this the best thing that we can. So
definitely, I know when we were navigating amalgamation even before the election, tax rates were the biggest concern for anyone who wasn't currently in a municipality and was joining a larger one. Can these be adjusted, do you assume, as we see how shared services work? Are we going to be looking closely to see who actually does use what and collecting data?
I think so. You're going to see a little bit more of that. There could be more added to it. I mean, for example, there's certain things that didn't get added to it. Like, I think when the transition teams were meeting, they were thinking about having everything shared, but that's not the way it's going to happen. But for example, the museum, and I'll use the museum in Blacks Harbour as just the people of Blacks Harbour are paying for that, not everybody. But somewhere down the road, they may be a shared cost. We don't know. But there's just something that things are going to be tweaked one way or the other as we move along. What's shared and what's not shared. Of course, there's going to be downloading too from the province of New Brunswick too. They want to download there's the roads. Right now, the province of New Brunswick is still in charge of all the outside roads in the old LSD area, so they're still in charge of that. They're still taking care of all that, but eventually they want to hand that over to Eastern Charlotte. So we'll have to look at the taxes at that point. But the outside areas now are they paying for roads? Is that enough? Are they paying enough for the service they're getting? So we may have to look at that back later if we the roads get handed over to us. We're in no hurry to do that, by the way, but because the roads need to be fixed up on the outside, and we don't want to take anything over until things are fixed up anyway.
Which brings me to the topic of public works. And all the councils that I cover, and I think the changes that we saw in Eastern Charlotte were the most significant. Where else did you have two municipalities dissolve, Blacks Harbour, St. George, to become one, and then add on another huge geographical base around it? How are you navigating just that merger, especially where public works is concerned?
Well, yeah, the first difficult thing we had to and we're just about there now, was having down to one union. We had two separate unions. Blacks Harbour and St. George had two unions, so you couldn't send workers from St. George down to Blacks and vice versa, because there's unions. You can't take jobs away from one there. So that's being merged now, and we're getting it down to they all become part of CUPE, and the agreements pretty much signed off now. It's just about there, and all the workers are happy with it. They've all been involved with it, and the council's been involved with it. So things are moving forward. Now that we have one union, we can say, for example, we say Blacks Harbour is having a bad day, or some people are out sick. See, Blacks Harbour, for example, on a Thursday has to pick up garbage. They have to keep the arena going. Oh, but this morning we woke up to a foot of snow, so now they got to plow the road on top of doing all those services as well too. So they could have trouble, and say somebody calls in sick. So now we have the option to be able to send maybe somebody from St. George down to Blacks to help out if they got too much, they got enough help, or they sometimes you have casual workers too. We can send a casual worker down to help out just for the day, and so we have those options now. Or a piece of equipment, for example, we can send something down that, say one of our trucks breaks down, or one of their trucks break down. We can send trucks back and forth and help each other out. We work together as a community. Now those people in the public works stay within the town of St. George and the village of Blacks Harbour. They don't do work on the outside areas, because that's still being handled by the province of New Brunswick. So we don't have them going on the outside areas unless there's something specific that we are in charge of. But they'll still stay. That way, the outside areas aren't getting a bill for the public works. So that those costs are still being taken on by Blacks Harbour and St. George only.
Okay.
So the outside areas don't pay for a public works crew.
I think that was a topic at the end of the February council meeting, and I can't remember which member of the public said this in the sort of part of the council meeting where the public can get up to the microphone and air their grievances or state whatever is on their mind. Someone mentioned potholes.
Now, what I'd like to speak to that too is that every council has a different formula, a way that they have what they call a rules and regulations for the meetings, and ours is different. They can get up and speak for 5 minutes on an issue. It's not question and answer back and forth. Like I think some towns and villages they have it where they can ask questions. Ours isn't that way. Ours is just let people get up, speak for 5 minutes, and anything you want to speak about municipal, but it's not a question and answer back and forth. So.
And there was one resident who I can't remember which former LSD they lived in, but they said, oh, what about potholes in our area? So that speaks to the point you were making, that that's not quite under the umbrella of
That's
Eastern
right, exactly.
Charlotte.
A lot of things are still in place, and they're not going to change for now because the province still has their duty to do theirs, and we still do what we do, what's our responsibility. So we're not in a hurry to take over the outside roads as of yet. So.
And same goes for, I know this was another, and I actually really enjoy the end of the council meeting to hear what's on the public's mind.
Sure.
Someone brought up bylaws and how does this apply to, and it's a whole, I guess, other thing that we'll have to navigate as time goes on, bylaws in former LSDs, because they don't immediately have the bylaws that you don't have a full bylaw that says Eastern Charlotte yet. This all has to be created.
Absolutely, and we're in no hurry to make those changes yet. A lot of the outside areas already have a plan. They have they already have a plan what can be built where, and what on zoning and all that sort of thing. Same as this town, St. George. St. George just did theirs last year. So we're in no hurry to make those changes. People, if the rules are the same rules they were last year, and they'll be enforced. It's the same way they were last year. So we're not out to make changes to going to you and say, well, you can't have 4 chickens this year. And we just, so you got to have, you can only have 2 or something. So we're not going to be doing all those changes. No, we're going to keep it the way it is right at the moment, unless the public comes to us and they want changes, then we'll look at council with it. But it's not a priority for us right now. We don't want people to think that we're rushing in to make all kinds of rules and regulations for the people in the LSD areas that are used to their way of life. We don't want to do that unless there's a major problem. So
okay.
The one area that we are going to be is dangerous and unsightly premises. That is something we will be working on, and you can send that message out now.
Sure.
It is something that our council is committed to. There's areas outside the boundaries of the old Black Cyber and St. George that have become properties that are dangerous and unsightly. Well, we plan on making sure that they're no longer, those areas are going to be around anymore. We're going to enforce that and making sure that they're cleaned up. When I was campaigning last summer, and some of the other councillors were out and about too, they've heard it. They heard it. They want these areas cleaned up. They don't want all these old cars and all these things in people's yards and dropping stuff into the environment. They want these things cleaned up. It brings down the value of your property. Brings down it's just plain dangerous to have all these properties around. So we will be enforcing that in the near future.
So will that be, for the sake of asking a dumb question, because
No,
I am navigating this too as a journalist,
right.
Does that mean you would write a bylaw that would apply to the whole area of Eastern Charlotte?
Absolutely.
You have to do that.
There'll be one for the whole area, and we will enforce it. Right now, there is a dangerous and unsightly premises, but we pay the province of New Brunswick $140,000 a year to do it, and they only have 2 people to do the whole problem. So that's if you back up again, that's one of the reasons why we asked to be a town. As a town, that gives us the authority to be able to do that. Okay. So once we get that ruling from the province, which we expect very soon, that will give us the authority to enact that. So we're going to keep that $140,000. We'll use that money to enforce the dangerous and unsightly premises.
And that was a decision for people who might not know to either be a rural district or a town. And as we've seen, most people in New Brunswick, even in what we think of as rural areas, have decided to go with the designation of town because it does give you a little more authority. It
does. It gives you more authority that way. And plus it puts you up further in the pecking order as far as unconditional grants for the province of New Brunswick. Unconditional grants usually start off with the cities, and then you go down to the towns and villages. And if we're a rural area, that's way down here. so, and they give out money to help out with infrastructure, is basically what the money's for. And well, St. George and Blacks Harbor always has infrastructure, and we need money to help keep our infrastructure going. So we need that money from the province of New Brunswick for what they call unconditional grants. And that's one of the reasons why we wanted to stay as a town, so that we keep that higher designation.
And as a town, you can enforce the dangerous and unsightly bylaws.
Yep, absolutely.
And that will apply to all of Eastern Charlotte. And just so I get it straight, because I navigate this just along with everyone else at home.
For sure.
Then the bylaws that are in LSDs currently, those still apply for the time being.
Absolutely, exactly. Okay. I don't expect council to make any changes to that unless we get the people from the outside areas coming to us and say, we want this done. And I don't see that happening right now. I think they're happy with what they got. They don't want to be told what they can and can't do at this point. They've already passed having their plans already been done over the last few years. So I don't expect that to happen. But if it does, then we'll deal with it when that comes forward. We're not looking to make changes that we don't have to change right now. I guess we have to stick to what we have to get done right now, and then move forward from there.
Now, I understand you asked council, and the nice thing about Eastern Charlotte Council is there was a ward system in place for the election, so you really do have representation all over this very geographically big area.
Sure.
You asked your council to all come up with their own list of priorities,
exactly.
which I think is a great way to kick off a new municipality. So what are some of the top concerns you have? And I imagine they vary greatly depending on...
And we got together, we meet weekly anyway, and I asked council, each of the councilors, to bring me what you think are the top priorities that you would really like to see get done. And there was a couple that really everybody agreed on, and there's ones that were kind of for each individual area of the area. But the two top ones, and I might keep this in front of me. The number one one that just kept coming up all the time was to get the expanding water and sewage out towards what they call exit 56 outside St. George, and that is the area out there with Home Hardware, Subway, Tim Hortons out that way. There's no water and sewage out that way as of yet, but we expect more businesses and more housing out in that location out there. There's room to expand, and and the council seems to want to get the water and sewage in there, because there's not going to be any more businesses come to that area, especially bigger businesses, unless we have water and sewage there. They need the water and sewage. They don't want to be building their own sewage lagoons and all that sort of thing. So we're going to have to do that for them in order for us to grow. If you want to keep your tax rates down, you got to grow, and you have to bring more houses and more businesses to your area. So that's one thing that council really agreed on, and the first step of that, of course, is just getting the price. What's it going to cost to do that, to expand the water and sewage out there? But in order to grow, you've got to be able to expand your services out that way. So that was one of the top priorities. Most of the council, all council agreed with, and they want to move forward with that. The other one was dangerous and unsightly premises, was what we just finished talking about, and all councils behind that. They want to move forward and making sure that we start cracking down on the properties around. If I had a dangerous and unsightly premises area right now, I'd be cleaning it up before we come. So I might as well be upfront and honest about it. It's going to happen, and people want us to do it, and it's going to happen. So, but we have different councillors, and I'm not going to go down through every one of them, but like we had Councillor Ted, who's from the Beaver Harbor area. He wants to be able to help out financially with the celebrations in Beaver Harbor. You got Councillor Dedirakis, who wants to see more paving on Brunswick Street and more water lines along Brunswick Street, and there's actually a plan for that. Councillor Lee, who does the Bonnie River, Second Falls area, to work on the community fire hall in Second Falls. Renovations needs to be done, and we actually are working on that with Andrea. That building belonged to the province of Brunswick. The persons in the LSD were taking care of that. That was handed over to us. We walked in afterwards and we found out this building needs a lot of work. So Andrea, our AMLA, is going to be helping us financially with that. She's promised, and we haven't seen it yet, but she wants to help and be able to help with these buildings that they've handed over to us. So that's something that Terry Lee has brought to the forefront, that this has got to be worked on. I think it was actually his dad that actually helped expand that building up there. He was the transport minister for the province of New Brunswick, and I think he helped build the community hall up there, which is part of the fire hall up in Second Falls and Bonnie River area. And the ball field in Bonnie River, Second Falls, he feels that we should be trying to help them a little bit with some of the fencing and porta potties and up there. So that's just an idea of as a priority for up that way. Councillor Thompson from the Back Bay area, he wants new street lights and stuff for the Back Bay area, so we're getting pricing on that for him, for his area. Street lights, of course, is not a shared cost, so if we do that, then those costs will be borne by the people that live in that area. Deputy Mayor Hatt, he wants us to be, here's a big one. I think St. Andrews is already here anyway. They want to be classified as a senior-friendly designated area. And that's something he would like to see us be working on too. And that's something we're going to strive towards as well, because we have a lot of seniors in our area. People are getting close to the senior group, so we want to make sure that we are classified as that as well. Councillor Hatt, of course, used to be the deputy mayor of Blacks Harbour. Of course, he wants to move ahead, keep moving ahead with arena upgrades. The big thing in Blacks Harbour, of course, is the RFPs from this property, all these different properties we're going to be taking over in our land deal. So he wants that to be moved ahead so we can get housing started right away down in Blacks Harbour, so that's going to happen. Councillor McQuarrie is the Penfield area, and dangerous and unsightly properties in the ridge is the first thing he said need to be dealt with. So that's something that we're going to be looking at, and he's working on a park up in the Penfield area. He'd like to have some help financially, making sure that we finish that park. There's a park in Penfield that needs work. And of course, I had a couple items too for the Blacks Harbour at the Tunaville area. I'd like to see some work done on the road in the Tunaville area, because that road has been let go for too many years. So I'm not saying we can do it all in 1 year, but if we can start doing portions of it year by year, and over the 3 or 4 years, maybe we can get it all done. So pick the worst spots and then work our way back. And of course, the arena Councillor Hatt and myself both agree we got to keep putting money back into the arena, not just for Blacks Harbour, because everybody owns that building, and we want to see that building used year-round, and that's where we're striving towards. Usually, when you see the ice come out in March and April, that's the building usually gets closed, and we don't want to do that anymore. We want to keep that building running year-round now. It's going to be a recreation center, so when the ice comes out, we want to see there's going to be ball hockey going in there, lacrosse are going to be using the ice level area without the ice there, and then the other side we're putting a floor in there so you can play other sports, so either soccer, volleyball. What's that game they play with?
Pickleball.
Pickleball. That's the other. That's the big sport now, I guess, for us seniors and stuff. So that's the big rage, and of course the YMCA is centered out of that building as well. So we want to keep moving forward with that, and there's going to be some outside work done this year that's already been put in the budget. The outside, where they had ball hockey on the outside, that's all going to be resurfaced, and then the playground is going to be brought down, so from up above down towards the arena complex. So there's still a lot of work being done in that arena. There's a lot of money still being spent on from the money we got from the federal government. The clock hasn't been put up yet, because we had to wait for hockey season to get over with before we can put the clock up. The clock's sitting there, but it's not ready to. We can't find a time yet to put it up, because we have to shut down a game or two in between. So, but things are moving ahead. There's a lot of money still being spent there, but we want to continue that along, because everybody belongs to. Like I said, the parking lot outside needs to be addressed too, because there's a lot of holes and stuff in that parking lot, so we got to get that fixed up as well too. So there's a lot of priorities, and we have a full list here. As you can see here on the camera, and I have a little spot here where we can check our priorities off as we do them. If we can get that whole thing checked off, then we can start a new priority list. But we want something in front of us, so we can have something tangible in front of us to be able to check off and know that we're moving forward with priorities.
Well, and I know that I tend to focus in questions on maybe asking you about the challenges of amalgamation, but I think You know, one of the perks to being Eastern Charlotte is I talk about the geographical area that you encompass being large, but also the population is quite considerable now, and it brings a lot of weight with it when you're on the table at the Southwest New Brunswick Service Commission, even giving you 2 votes where most municipalities just have 1. Can you talk a little bit about what that means? The
well,
size?
I mean, St. Stephen and ourselves are probably the 2 largest communities around, and St. Stephen's a tad bit bigger, maybe about 1,000 more than we are. We're about 7,700. They're probably close to 8,500 or so in that ballpark. And again, the Southwest Service Commission goes by the population as far as how many votes you get. So I think we're above the 5,000 mark. There's a mark of 5,000, so we're able to have more say at that table. That's the table where the mayors from our region work together for projects, whether maybe tourism, maybe it could be almost anything. It could be economic development is the big one, to bring more businesses to the area, more housing to the area. We've got to work on projects together that would be good for all of us. So it's a good thing that we can put all our money together and work on the bigger projects. Tourism, like I say, is big for St. Andrews. It's big for our area too. So it's something that because of our population, and we will have more say in it. I guess that's about it.
We only have about a minute left, and I'd love to talk about this in more detail next month when you're back.
Sure.
But obviously policing has become quite an issue in rural communities, especially where we are seeing a rise in crime, and sometimes with that a lack in police services. Sure. How are you navegating that in Eastern Charlotte?
Right now we have a public safety committee, which the deputy mayor chairs that right now. It's not an issue that's just centralized on Eastern Charlotte or even Southern New Brunswick for that matter. It's all New Brunswick. If I go to meetings in Fredericton, it's probably one of the #1 issues province-wide as far as the type of policing we're getting from the RCMP contracts. It is something we have to look at, something we have to we need a bigger bang for our buck, I guess is probably a good way of saying it. Our budget for Eastern Charlotte is over $7 million, but I think it was almost close to $3 million of that is for policing. so we have to look at. We're not getting the service that we feel we should be getting. Not blaming the RCMP members or anything like that. It's just the system that's been set up. We need more visibility out there. I think we need more presence out there, and we don't feel we're getting that. And that's everywhere. Everybody feels the same way. And if that means we have to hire a subcontract another force or do our own force, that's something we have to look at. Some areas of the problems are have the RCMP and a separate security company as well on top of that. So maybe that's something we have to look at too. So our council, our committee, our public safety committee has actually just started work on that lately, and to see which way we're going to move forward. So.
Thank you, John, for making time for us again this month.
No, thank you for having me. Thank you.
My guest today has been the Mayor of Eastern Charlotte, John Craig. I'm Vicki Hogarth. Thank you for watching Your Town Matters.